The world we know is gone. No internet, no GPS, no text messages, no podcasts. In a world ruled by the dead, we are finally forced to start living.
Hey everybody, this is Russ, and of course it's me and Aaron and Rich and Daryl. For those of you that aren't on the Facebook group, unfortunately this is going to be an episode where we've got to deliver some bad news. Our podcasting brother, our good friend, Jim Dietz passed away this last Monday. And we're all just still trying to kind of deal with it. It came very sudden. It wasn't like there was anything going on that we thought that this was something that was going to happen. And he's got a wife, he's got two small kids. And as bad as we're feeling about what's going on, I mean, we feel just as bad for, his wife and his two little kids, because they don't have that big jovial guy there with them anymore. So we thought we would just
hear.
Go ahead, Aaron. I'm sorry.
Nor do we hear, because like you're saying, this did come as a shock, and it's, Jim, he was a major presence as far as, not just like for everything. I mean, we're about to go over everything, and he brought so much here, and, jovial and fun, and these are just like words, but this has really messed me up this week, guys. I'm sorry that this is...
Yeah, not just you.
You don't even have to you're preaching to the choir on that.
Yeah, I mean, we just,
Yeah, that's the last thing I talked back and forth with him on was when we were going to record this week.
Yeah.
And we were going to do it Monday, and I didn't get the news till later from Aaron. And so I got on Monday night, and I sat here, and when we logged in just now to record, I saw my last message to him going, "No go tonight."
Yeah.
Yeah. But, I talked to him on Sunday morning. That is our ritual. We record every Sunday morning. And, we had a fun time. And then the next thing I know, the next day, I get a message from his wife that he passed. And I don't even, you look at it and you go, no, it can't be, because I just talked to him. We were just laughing 12 hours ago. There's no way that he's gone that.
They talk about the stages of grief or whatever, and I know, when I first saw that message pop up from you, Daryl, I just thought you were, just from 6 feet away, it just looked like, oh, you're just sharing a link to get ready for the show, because, I was getting ready to prep my notes and stuff, and then I popped that message up, and, after I felt like somebody, hit me with a brick, I literally was like, well, maybe somebody hacked his wife's account, and somebody's,
that's my thought.
Just saying that, because it just seems so inconceivable.
And that's what I wanted it to be.
And then I thought, okay, well, he's in the chat too. So if this is, if this isn't right, he'll just chime right in and be like, hey guys, somebody did this. And, that never came. So.
No. I even looked at his site. I looked at his page. I even looked at his wife's page, just because I just could not fathom that would be the case. It can't be. You just tell yourself it can't be. We talk every week.
Yeah.
We all talk to him every week.
Yeah. I mean, even, behind the curtain, you all hear us on this podcast, when the show is going on, right? We'll record weekly when there's a show going on, and sometimes during the breaks we'll pop in there and do a show here or there. But amongst ourselves, we talk often. I mean, just random stuff. Like we have a kind of a Facebook chat that's always going with just random stuff that we talk about personally, and so this isn't just like I said, I mean, there's people from the internet, and then there's people and Jim was one of those people that started out for me as one of those people I just knew from the internet, right? Like going back to the I mean, some of you may not know some of you may know the history of where we are and how we got here, but some of you don't. And
well, let's get into that.
Yeah, way back when. The podcast still goes on, but it's not the same as it used to be. But there's a podcast called Comic Geek Speak, and they ran their own forums. This is like 2000. This is early days of podcasting, so this is like 2005, 2006. 2000.
The Wild West.
The Wild West, yes, of podcasting.
Yeah.
And they ran their own message board, and we all listened to that podcast because we're all comic nerds that lived across the country and didn't have, as adults, didn't have people to hang out with and talk comics. And so that was kind of a place for us all to kind of feel like we're all part of the same group. And there were podcasts that spun off from that group. And one of them was a podcast called Half Hour Wasted, which was run by Brad Milo and Frank Rincon. And then they brought in Bill McGonnell, and
probably the reason why I was able to survive, because just those two.
Yes. And they had their own message board on the forum. Basically, if you ran a podcast, they would give you your own little forum on their boards, and a bunch of us listened to Half Hour Wasted because Brad and Frank would pop up on that show occasionally, with funny little stuff. And so when they started their own podcast, I was like, oh, these guys are in Dallas. And at the time I was in Luling. So I was south of Austin, and I was like, hey, these guys, a Texas podcast, like, compared to Pennsylvania, these guys are pretty close. And so I started listening to them. And then, of course, we were all active on the boards. And a couple of us got an idea when the Watchmen movie was coming out to, wouldn't it be cool to just really talk about this book and kind of dissect it and just be like uber nerdy? And Brad and Frank let us kind of do it as like a guest spot on their podcast. And me and Johnny M and Adam Umack were the kind of the first three of us, and we were like, well, we need some, why don't we get some more guys, some more folks. And so we kind of put the call out on that board. And one of the first people to respond was this guy with the handle of Yoda Jones. That responded, one of the first ones to respond, and that was Jim, and there were a couple other guys, Ken and a couple other guys, the other Adam, that, and we all just, literally the first time we talked to each other in person was, when we started to fire up to record and talk about Watchmen, and then, we had such a good time talking about it, that it just became our own podcast. We started a podcast called The Legion of Dudes, and it was kind of this in-depth comic analysis podcast that alternated with like Half Hour Wasted. So
don't Google that podcast name though. Be careful.
Yeah. And back then Jim was running, him and Melanie were running Gypsy Cafe, in Pittsburgh. And he would record from the restaurant, and
and I heard from there. That's how I knew of him and you guys, is from listening to the show.
Yeah, and that was always fun because you'd hear pots and pans clanging, you'd hear stuff going on at the restaurant, and he'd just have all kinds of crazy. The pre-records and the post-records are always pretty cool because he always had some crazy ass story about what was going on. And
just as a side note here, I'll enter into the story later, but when the Walking Dead show was starting, for some reason I don't know how I found it, but I was just finding podcasts and like finding things to listen to while at work at that time. And I knew, like, I was excited for Watchmen because with the movie coming out, I was like, cool. Like, I think I was just searching for like other things that, like, since I discovered podcasts, it's like, what else is on here? And I think I just like searched Watchmen one day and just came across your guys' show. So I just started tuning in. So yeah, I'll stop there for now.
No.
Right back to it.
Yeah.
It's just like it's weird, right? Like I come in there, but then I don't really interact until later. But that's where I am at this point in the timeline.
Yeah, because I think when did we? So I'm trying to like go back timeline.
2008 is the summer, the summer of 2000, something like that.
Yeah, we timed it. It was pretty cool because we timed it to where literally, like when we finished the 12th episode, because we did like alternating, we put other stuff in there, but we kind of timed it to where pretty much when we finished talking about Watchmen, the movie came out. So
yeah, that's how you guys.
So it was kind of like,
yeah.
We figured it out. It's like, okay, if we alternate episodes, we can pretty much finish this thing up right when the movie comes out.
That's why, because Dark Knight had the premiere trailer for Watchmen. That it was like that's where people were seeing it in masses for the first time. So like after that, so I assume like the fall at some point is when you guys probably started doing the show.
Yep. So that August 26th of 2008. That's when we did the first.
Okay, there you go. That tracks.
Yeah, and so it was just fun because, like I said, Jim would record straight from the restaurant because he was working crazy hours and had his some of his servers that were like super nerdy and would cosplay and stuff, and they hopped on the show a couple times, and he would run these like drinking draws and stuff like that. So he would have people come in, like Ed Piskor, comic artist Ed Piskor used to come into Gypsy. And Jim always say, he'd come into the restaurant when he was underage, but he would just sit there and literally sit in the corner and just draw. So Jim wouldn't hassle him. And they became pretty good friends. And I know anytime anything, like if there's Pittsburgh Comic-Con or anything going on in that area, Jim would always have the group come to the restaurant and do like geek brunch and stuff like that. So a lot of the CGS guys, the 11 o'clock comics guys would go in there when they would come out to like Pittsburgh Comic-Con or something. All those listeners, he would have them in there, and they would just. I was always jealous. I never got a chance to get out to Pittsburgh to go to Gypsy when that was going.
Yeah, me neither.
I really was bummed when they decided to kind of get out of the restaurant. I was really bummed that I never got out there.
Yeah, and so this is kind of where I come in, at least because it was right towards the last few years of the Gypsy Cafe. I had met all of you guys through Jordan, one of the founding members of the Walking Dead TV podcast. Yeah. Jordan from Jersey, and I met him on Kevin Smith's View Askew message boards, and he had this signature banner and his signature on the message board that was for HHWLOD and Legion of Dudes. And I'd been interacting with him for a few months, and then I said, I'm going to check this out. I click on it, and it's not Jordan, and it's Frank, Brad, and Bill, and Frank is going apeshit over his discovery of Nutella. And I'm like, I don't know. Okay, I don't know what this is. And so I messaged Jordan, and he's like, oh, no, that's one of them on the feed. Wait for Legion of Dudes. I'll be on that one. And then so I go to listen to Legion of Dudes when it comes out the next episode. And it's this very deep-throated guy in a restaurant with his waitresses who are, I guess, True Blood experts. And it was all about True Blood. And I'm like, back on the message, we're like, Jordan, are you on any of these podcasts? And but there was just something about like that whole episode, because I had just gotten into True Blood, because I think this was like between season 1 and season 2. Probably. I think in the timeline. But anyway, so I just started listening to Legion of Dudes, and then you guys started Dead TV podcast. I had guested on some of Jordan's video podcasts that he was posting on YouTube. And and
you were in Dallas at the time.
I was in Dallas.
So we got to meet at the Wizard Worlds.
Oh yeah, we met in person several times.
Yeah, and then you went down to Austin.
I hung out with Brad and Bill and Frank several times. I actually hired Brad one time to video a commercial I was producing for my employer. Used to go to Bill's wife at the time's plays and all that kind of stuff. So, but really got to know Jim when you, Russ, brought me onto the Walking Dead TV podcast, and then got to know him and Daryl through doing this podcast. And then we spun off, and I don't know how many years we did DC TV.
Yeah.
I think at least six years.
Wow.
So
how many times? So in person wise, I met Jim. So the two super shows that we went to,
Mm-hmm.
I met him there both times, and the second time was the famous. We actually got a panel at Super Show, and Jim and I debated whether the Morrison X-Men run was complete dog shit or was the greatest thing ever put to page. Of course, I think it's dog shit, and Jim thought it was excellent.
And so this is a conversation you didn't record?
No, it's still on the website. Yeah, we videoed the video. Yeah. It's still up there.
Okay.
Because it was funny because Jim and I would always argue about the Morrison run. Like, he loved the Morrison run. I'm a huge, like, I have like every issue of X-Men from like 1981 on up. Like, I've got a huge X-Men collection in my comics. And Jim had a ton of X-Men books too, and he read them off the shelf when they came out. And he loved the Morrison run, and I just was like, because it was even he clipped it out of a podcast run because it was this weird like outtake where it was like I said I despise the Morrison run, and like that got clipped and like put like I don't know how many things. And so when it came to Super Show and we're talking about doing a panel or something, and Jim was like, "What if we debated the Morrison thing?" And I was like, "That's genius." So yeah, the two of us sat down and just like debate style, like we each had notes, and the two of us sat there at a big old table and just went back and forth. It was awesome. It was a good time. And then we met. One of the best weekends of my life. I mean, and I'm not exaggerating. One of the best weekends of my life was Comic-Con 2011. When we went to New York Comic-Con in 2011. And it was me and my buddy Glenn went with, and of course, Johnny M was there. The first time I ever met Johnny M in person was the only time I met Johnny M in person was Comic-Con 2011. And Ken didn't make it. So it was always funny because all of us had met each other, but we never were in the same place at the same,
right.
Like all of us were never in the same place. Like Ken had gone to Comic-Con like the 3 years before that, and Johnny M had been there a few years, and then Jim had been there the couple years before. So the three of them had met, at New York Comic-Con several times. And then of course the one year when I finally get up there in 2011, Ken couldn't make it. But John did, and Jim. And that was just one of the best weekends of my life. I mean, getting to hang out with all of those guys all weekend. And I mean, I think the last night at the con, we went back to our hotel room and just we recorded, I think like a 2.5 hour podcast of us literally just like half drunkenly just being stupid, like just rambling on. And it was just great. I mean, it was, and Jim was, I mean, he was hustling that whole time. He was talking to, like, he was a huge fan of Venture Brothers. And so he went to the Venture Brothers panel and got to do some interviews with them, and was, just running around the whole time. And then we got to interview Bruce Timm and Kevin Conroy, and that was pretty primo. But yeah, that was a great time. And then the last time I met him was that trip to Heroes Con where you were there, Rich, and Daryl, you were there, obviously. And,
Yeah.
Mike and my buddy Glenn went with them, and Chris Campbell. and we hung out that weekend. That was a good time.
It's the only time I've seen Daryl in person, and it's one of 2 times I saw Jim in person. So
Yeah. That was like the third time, I think, because I saw Daryl at Super Show, and then at
Yeah,
Comic-Con,
yeah.
and then at Heroes.
I saw it at Heroes Con, and then I had to go to Pittsburgh on business, and while I was there, Jim took me to meet his mentor, Claudio, his chef mentor.
Nice.
And I still cannot forget that eggplant parmesan. Oh.
So we're leaving Aaron. So Aaron, you need to jump in. I'm trying to think of when you came into Walking. How did Johnny M pull you into Walking Dead because of like your write-ups or something?
Yeah,
That was his superpower. Like that's how he found Jordan. Jordan was doing YouTube videos on Walking Dead, and he was like, "Hey, you got to check this guy's videos out. I think he'd be a good to add onto the podcast."
I have to think that I probably wrote in on the Walking Dead on the Watchmen show. Like I probably emailed at some point as far as just like I have thoughts on this, as I do. But then the Walking Dead show started, and I was like, well, I like these guys already, and they're doing a Walking Dead show. I like Walking Dead. I want to be. I'm going to listen to that for sure. And yes, I was. It was before I started writing because I didn't write the first season up. I started writing about it. I think I started writing about the third, like in full, the third season. I think I was writing into you guys weekly during this first and second season because I wanted to. And then around this same, because this is 2010, right? Yeah, right? 2010?
Yep.
So during this, I start Out Now podcast with Abe. We start that in 2011. And so like at that point, like I'm listening to podcasts, I'm listening to you guys and Walking Dead. And it gets to the point where Abe and I start the podcast, and Johnny M is, because I'm like messaging and stuff, and he pulls Abe and I on as a like, can we be on the HHW LOD network? Because it's not like a movie podcast,
right.
So that plays a role in there as well. But even before that, because during that, so like I never got to meet Jim in person. I never got to like meet. In fact, I've only like Daryl. You're the one person I like met in person.
Yeah. Comic-Con, yeah.
But when I was writing into Walking Dead, the thing that, as far as connecting this directly, this isn't even necessarily an origin story, even though it's so tied to how everything started. But when I was writing into Walking Dead, the thing that I picked up, I mean, I was enjoying the show and everything, but when I was listening to the podcast, and I wrote in, Jim, he paid me a compliment in a way that never like went away, where he like whichever one of you guys was reading it, he acknowledged the fact that he called me an erudite young man. He called me a smart guy.
He was an English major.
Yeah,
Yes, sure.
And that held through all of this. He's always regarded me as an intelligent young man, and it's I'm not going out of my way here to make it sound like I'm some kind of fucking rocket scientist. It's just the fact that Jim didn't know me, but for whatever like small paragraphs I was writing about The Walking Dead, that was enough for him to just like continually be the pleasant person that he was in regards to me. He was happy to single me out for just being someone that's like, this guy knows what he's talking about. This is his impression that he has of me as a person that's just writing in some words. And obviously he stands out as far as his voice, as far as me identifying you guys at that time. But then like once I started to get on, like I think I guessed it a few times before I like became like regularly on the show.
Episode 26. Walking Dead TV podcast on June 12th of 2011.
Mm-hmm.
This week, Jordan Russ and special guest Aaron Newworth. We watched the third episode of season 1 of The Walking Dead, and you're invited along for the ride.
Is that Tell It to the Frogs?
It's Tell It to the Frogs.
Yeah. Okay. That's one of my favorite episodes.
And then the next one, it was episode 28. It was another commentary. Brad, John, Jordan, and Russ sit down with returning guest, not just special guest, but returning guest, Aaron Newworth. And then when do you show up?
He wasn't
again?
special anymore. He just was
He
returning.
was just returning. Yeah.
I'm sure that was an edit made by Brad Milo.
Oh, and then you were special again on episode 30. Frank Darabont. Oh, this is where we talked about Frank Darabont's departure.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
And then I'm trying to think of where.
Like, I know I was more the second half of season 2, I was probably more around, but I know season 3 is when I was on. Pretty sure. Like, I was on regularly at that point. God, this is such a long time.
I know, right?
The Walking Dead. But yeah, so like, yeah, a lot of my like origin doing all the stuff that I do centered around the fact that I was listening to your guys' podcast. I was also just starting up my blog. So I was like started meeting people in these areas and if not, and then doing the podcast with Abe, obviously. So it just all kind of coalesced at the same time. But within that time, and it's not like I wasn't friendly with you guys either, but I mean, it was a matter of like, Jim certainly singled me out in a way that I felt this level of respect that I didn't know if I necessarily like earned, but in his eyes, he was like, this guy, you know what? I like what he's saying. Yeah, and I'm happy to kind of acknowledge that. And it just, you know, over time, we'd have Jim on our podcast as well and whatnot. He's been on plenty of times.
Yeah, he did a lot. He did a ton of your comment. I know whenever you guys had a commentary track, he was always like, let me know, I'm on. You know, I know you did a ton of your commentary track
for a good while. Yeah, especially because we were doing a lot of like 80s movies and things.
Oh, he loved it.
Yeah, because he has an extensive VHS collection, and so he was always he was very willing to be part of it just because he liked doing the thing, just like we all like doing, just talking about movies for a while, which is, you know, it's fun to do. Yeah. But certainly, you know, we all offer a perspective, and he certainly had his. And I was very happy to speak with him because he's always, you know, among the many things, a very knowledgeable person and one that was happy to have the kind of can-do spirit. Like, yeah, let's do this. So,
yeah, and I mean, he like the more obscure and the more kind of off the beaten path movie there was. Like, I mean, he knew it. I mean, like you guys, I'm a huge movie buff, but man, there's stuff that would come up and he's like, oh yeah, I saw that, you know, when I was, you know, in this place and I went to the video store and, you know, rented that and watched it. And I was like, I have never heard of this movie ever. Like I had no knowledge of this existing.
He could watch and love a $12 budget film if it had the right heart in it. You know, those horror movies he would watch were just like, you know, small movies no one has ever heard of. He would bring it up every week. Like, I just saw this and I just saw that. And it's like, he would even watch movies off of YouTube. He would find them where he just loved those movies. Like, he just did it every week. I mean, just...
Yeah, he constantly had good recommendations on things.
It was infectious. Yeah. Documentaries he loved. I mean, his love for Star Wars is unmatched, I think, by anyone. Just the things that he loved to talk about and the things he loved to share with people. That was the thing that also, I think, what gravitated people towards him is that he loved to share his hobbies with you.
Yeah.
Yeah, that it wasn't until late in the run, and it's not obscure. I just didn't hear of it, and it was both you, Daryl, and him when we were recording a DC podcast. Turned me on to Letterkenny, and I was
yeah,
and you know, just and that was this past Wednesday or Tuesday, that International Women's Day special of Letterkenny came out.
Yeah.
And my first thought was, I wonder if Jim, and then, you know, but he was the first person I thought of.
Yeah.
He makes me feel like that that's one of the many hard things with losing him, is that you think about every time something was announced or something was on, you know, that's coming on TV this week. Yeah. The first thing I thought was, I want to touch, like Jim would like this. Oh, like it just would constantly be in my head, you know, that Jim would love this or he would love that, or he would probably be telling me about this before I even saw it mentioned somewhere. And you kind of, and you want to talk to him about it. Like that's one of the many things that's going to be hard about, you know, him not being here, is that you're going to want to share and talk to him about stuff and you just can't.
Yeah. Yeah.
If it weren't for him, I might not have ever seen Psycho Gorman.
Okay.
Oh.
Well, that's I mean, he liked plenty of, you know, he liked all kinds of movies, but he certainly liked genre films, and I'm big in there as well. But you know, there was a lot of crossover as far as the kinds of like older things, genre things, and obscure things and whatnot that I was happy to, like, you know, not only hear about from him but also share with him. And it's new, like, you still, I mean, we knew stuff too. Like, it just wasn't cut off from, you know, from anything, you know, that was you know, that they're still making. So it was just like, and he just loved consuming these things. Like, and he got you to, you know, there's so many things he got all of us to watch or, you know, look at because he suggested it. And he just, and he knew what you like too. Because he'd be like, yeah. I know you were going to like this. And then he was right. Like, you didn't even question it anymore.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many times I get like a message from him and be like, hey, I know you're into X. Like, did you know that there's this, this, or this? And I'd be like, you know, sometimes I, you know, like, oh, yeah. And so those other times I'm like, what?
But he knew you.
He knew, you know, he knew what you were into.
And he listened to you too. Like that.
Yeah.
I think that was something that he, you know, it's just so fun to podcast with him because he listens. He just doesn't wait for you to finish to just talk about what he wants to talk about. He listens to what you're saying.
And he loved to podcast. Like,
he did.
As busy as, I mean, even when he had, you know, both his kids, I was like, oh man, he's probably going to be, you know, mostly tied up. He would, you know, beg, barter, and steal with his wife to kind of work things out. And, you know, we would, you know, push things around a little bit if we needed to accommodate it. But man, I can't tell you how many times he'd be like, hey, I can't make it. You know, I got this, that, or the other going on. You guys go ahead and record. And 30 minutes into it, you know, boom, he shows up. Like, so many times, like, he would be like, no, I can't make it. And, like, you know, unlike me, where if I say, hey, I can't make it, like, I'm not showing up. Like, if Jim said he's not making it, there's like a 60% chance he's going to show up at some point.
Yeah, at least before the end of the show.
Yeah.
He can try to show up.
Which was always, it was always a nice surprise because you weren't expecting it, and then he'd just show up.
And he was, I mean, and the funny bits that, I mean, over the years that I've been a part of with Jim, and just how much fun he had for life. I mean, and people might not know, but there were times where he had to get a special procedure done, like monthly.
Yeah.
Where he'd be in excruciating pain. And he would still come on and podcast and talk and laugh and stuff. Like, there are many times where he didn't feel, you know, okay. And he still, and you wouldn't, and I know listeners would not have even known it.
Yeah.
Because he just wanted to be on the show. He wanted to be, you know, he wanted to talk to us. He wanted to, you know, share things with the listeners. He just enjoyed it, which made it easier for you. Even when I didn't want to, like, I was tired or whatever, he made you want to do it, even when you didn't want to do it, because he just made it such a easy. He just made it easy to podcast with.
Yeah. And there's so many times, like, we'd finish the recording proper, and I know, like, Daryl, me, you, and him would sometimes we'd keep yakking for like an hour and a half. Sometimes, you know, it just.
I was going to mention that because I mean that's part of my favorite part of when we record is like we have fun recording these episodes, but dear audience, you have no idea. We will sometimes, I mean, shoot, there have been times Russ, you, me, and Jim would just talk for 2-3 hours.
Oh yeah.
And the recorders were still running. It's like, hey, maybe we could make something else out of that. Because, we talk Walking Dead through all these episodes, but then afterwards it's every nerdy little thing under the sun to our heart's desire. And, Jim always that's where a lot of those obscure recommendations and whatnot would come from, it's those conversations.
Yeah. And a lot of it was, just for a while there, we were podcasting. I mean, we had like Legion of Dudes, and then Jim and Johnny did the Daredevil podcast for a while.
Yeah. I love that podcast.
Until Shadowland killed it. Jim would always say, yeah, Shadowland killed the podcast.
Shadowland.
Yeah. I loved Shadowland, and then the ending happened, and it was like, yeah, I agree.
Oh, my God. What was the other show I used to love, too? The guy from Lost was in it.
Alcatraz. That was Brad and Brad and Johnny M did
Podcatraz.
Yeah.
I followed that was right around the time that I think I first
so many
made
shows going on. It was great. Yeah,
Johnny M. He always was great at starting a podcast.
Yes.
Like that, he loved starting a podcast and coming up with a name for a podcast. And then
he was the J.J. Abrams of podcasting.
Yeah, and then, 3 months into it, or, whatever, he's just like, moved on to something else. He loved, naming and starting a podcast.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we did all kinds of stuff. I know for a while we were doing like a weekly, like the weekly comic releases. Me and Ken were doing it.
I remember that, yeah.
But yeah, the Daredevil one was good because that was really just... That was the first time we kind of spun something off, and it was not all of us. I would show up on there occasionally, but it was mainly Jim and Johnny M. Like it was their deal.
Oh, yeah.
And I just I would show up, here or there, but it was their deal. Which that was fun.
I know.
You guys also did and maybe it was part of Legion of Dudes, but you guys would do like dedicated, it had nothing to do with comics. It would just be about a movie, usually a movie that just came out.
Man, the one podcast that faded that I really was bummed about, but we just couldn't get the time to do it, was we did it where our goal was to try and find the best superhero movie. And I created a spreadsheet and what did we call that thing?
I can't
Hollywood.
remember.
No, it was Real Heroes. Real Heroes.
Yes, Real Heroes. Yes.
Yeah.
With 2 E's, right?
With 2 E's. Yeah. And Jim was on that one too. We had I love that podcast, and we just couldn't get everybody together to do it. But I put every comic book movie into a spreadsheet and put a number on it, and then I had a random number generator, and we would review the movie and then give it a rating. We'd each give it a rating, and we'd aggregate it. And then I would spin the wheel, quote unquote, at the end of the episode, and whatever number it came up, that was the number on the spreadsheet. That was the one we talked about the next time. So it was completely random, what we would talk about. And the goal was to eventually like get through them all. That was fun.
Yeah, it was. Yeah,
I want to say I was on for more than one of those, but I know I was on for the Cowboys and Aliens one because it fucked up.
That's fun.
Oh, man.
That was one of the...
Remember when that was easy to do, when you could feasibly put something like that on a wheel, and now it's like you can't. There's too many.
Oh yeah, I couldn't imagine doing it now. This is before the MCU. Like, I think maybe Iron Man had come out. Maybe
it was before like Phase 1 ended. Like it was.
Yeah, I guess so. Avengers was out at that point. Yeah.
Well, yeah, Iron Man was what 2008, and Avengers was